Well, good evening, WNBA and LA Sparks fans, and welcome in to the LA Sparks 365 Network, your 24/7 365 comprehensive home of the WNBA and your two-time WNBA champion Los Angeles Sparks. Welcome in, folks. Tonight, 2 of 12 here for the WNBA seasonal recap. Tonight, folks, recapping the season for the Tulsa Shock, alongside Chris Woodmansey from the 8 Heart Studios in Anaheim, California, of course, via Apple's FaceTime. Cal McClure joining you folks here from Studio 171 in San Diego. Chris, good evening. How's it going tonight, man?
Just hanging here.
Now, folks, coming up at 10:30 tonight, we have the first small list of free agents that the Sparks are beginning to go and target. We will have our first edition of Sparks 365 Free Agency Central coming up at the bottom of the hour. And, of course, folks, we'll take your guys' input on the WNBA, the Sparks, and the team we're talking about tonight, folks, the Tulsa Shock, on Twitter or in our live Q&A bar. So hit us up on Twitter at LA Sparks 365, at Calimac3, or at LA Sparks Fan 30. And you can also hit us up with the black box, or right down here, my finger's at, and hop on over to the live Q&A lobby. Well, Chris, another year of disappointment down there in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the Tulsa Shock, coming off of another pretty rough season for that franchise, Chris, after the move from Detroit in 2009. Chris, like the Wikipedia page for the Shock said, Chris, for the article about the team moving to Tulsa, this is not what the investor group that brought the franchise to Tulsa was hoping and envisioning to get when they got the Shock from Detroit to Tulsa, Chris. They have been a completely different franchise, Chris, and it all starts, man, with the first bullet point I want to bring up here, Chris, which is about their big superstar, 6'8" center, Liz Cambage. Now, Chris, Liz missed some significant time in 2013 due to some pretty serious ankle problems. We saw it firsthand when the Sparks made that immaculate 19-point comeback when Liz stepped on her teammate's foot and rolled her ankle in a very, very scary scene and missed a lot of time because of the ankle problems that she occurred. And then this year, Chris, of course, man, it's a similar situation what we saw with the Storm last night, where it's a puzzle piece, Chris, to a team that had injury problems and also missed the time, Chris, because of the FIBA World Championships, Chris. And I think that even though that Liz didn't play this year, man, she was sorely missed because the centers for Tulsa were a bit frazzled and a bit rattled, Chris. And honestly, man, no team in the West or Eastern Conference, Chris, nobody had a player like Liz Cambage, Chris, that is 6'8" and could physically beat down Brittany Griner one-on-one, Chris. No one had that at their disposal this season, not even Tulsa. Chris, how big of a role, though, does Liz Cambage's absence affect how much does it affect what we saw with the Tulsa Shock, and that they did not have their big center, their big puzzle piece, Chris, and again, someone that could physically match up one-on-one against Brittany Griner?
I think very huge when Liz Cambage is not in the lineup, because she can match up with Brittany Griner and everything when she's out of the lineup. Just Shock, just weak.
Now, Chris, it's kind of funny that we have 2 straight nights of recaps and 2 straight nights we have to talk about a big player being down. And, of course, Chris, last night was Lauren Jackson. Tonight is Liz Cambage, Chris. We're again, both these players were going to miss half the season because of training for the FIBA tournament, but they both, Chris, missed the season. And now, Chris, both those players, Cambage and Jackson, Chris, will both miss the tournament now because of lingering injuries. Now, Chris, this is something we'll talk about probably tomorrow night, probably on WNBA radio tomorrow night at 10:30 here, is about, again, Chris, the pros and cons of these guys playing overseas every offseason, man, and we know there's a lot going on, but Chris, it's not, Chris, this is, not funny in any way that we've had 2 superstars on 2 respective clubs that have had to go down with injuries while training for an overseas tournament, Chris. And physically, man, I don't think that Tulsa can replace her, man. And obviously, no one across the league, Chris, can, match up with Cambage or even match up with Griner because of his size. Now, Chris, the next bullet point I want to bring up here, Chris, we'll get to more about Liz later on, is the coaching staff turnover, Chris. The Shock, since they have gone to Tulsa, have gone through, I believe, 7 different coaches. I might be wrong, though. At least 6 different coaches, Chris, in the time they've been in Tulsa, Chris, involving Richardson, Gary Kloppenberg for 2 seasons, and now, Chris, the former head coach of the 2013 WNBA final runners-up down there in Atlanta, Chris, Fred Williams, along with Bridget Pettis and Ed Baldwin. Chris, I think man, I mean, I don't think this is on the players, Chris, but this more so, man, is sort of a question mark, Chris, of very. I mean, I know, Chris, I know we talk a lot about the Sparks ownership being questionable, Chris. Right now, I think the Tulsa Shock's head coaching vacancy is pretty shaky, Chris, because there's been a lot of turnover, man. A lot of new faces have come in, Chris, every season down there in Tulsa. Chris, how big of a role, though, does the constant new coaching system or coaching staff play a big role, Chris, in pretty much how bad the Shock have been since they made that leap from Detroit down to Tulsa back a few years ago?
I think just very huge and just going downhill.
Chris, I think there might be one word for Shock fans to keep in their mind right now, and I think, Chris, it also goes out to the Shock front office, Chris, is the one word, Chris, is consistency. They have not played consistent, basketball since the relocation from Detroit to Tulsa, Chris. I do, Chris, have in my notes here, on my paper, Chris, they have not had a winning record since 2009 and have not made the playoffs since 2009, Chris. So there's a bit of a gap there, that the Tulsa Shock investors, the owners, Chris, thought they were getting, a marquee franchise from Detroit, Chris, that, had all the success of the 4 Eastern Conference titles and the 3 league titles in 03, 06, and 09. But, Chris, they have basically, Chris, got a flop on the return of their dollar here, Chris. I think the one word, Chris, that has to be etched in everyone's mind down there in Tulsa is consistency. You got to play consistent basketball for all 34 games. You can't start 0-5, 0-6 like you saw last year, Chris, and hope for a miracle to get to the postseason, man. And also, man, you got to have consistency too, man, in the front office and the coaching personnel, Chris. I mean, you can't keep blowing out coaches, especially, man, in the WNBA, where there's not a whole lot of suitors for those coaching vacancies, man. Chris, looking forward to next season, how big, though, how big will that word, Chris? How big is consistent play going to be for the Tulsa Shock next season?
Very huge. And like you just said, that word, if they can sustain it through the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, consistency has been a thing that they have pretty much lacked in Tulsa for the past 4 years, and I think every fan would agree about that right now at this point in time. Now, Chris, there are a few positives. We're not trying to be Debbie Downers here. I'm a Tulsa Shock, Chris. I know you want to be for some reason, but I'm not going to be. Chris, 2 bright spots, though. Their number 2 draft pick this year in the 2014 draft of Odyssey Sims, Chris, had a great first year down there in Tulsa, Chris, becoming Skylar Diggins' new BFF and also her sidekick this year for a while, Chris. And I think, Chris, that Odyssey had a great season. She was named to the all-rookie team, man. And, Tulsa basically, Chris, found a diamond in the rough almost. I mean, how Odyssey had a great year. Great career, Chris, at Baylor, being basically, Chris, second fiddle to Brittany Griner for a few years, man. She came in the WNBA, man, and tore it up in her first season, had a great game against the Sparks back in August that kept LA out of the postseason for one more day. Chris, seeing Odyssey's first year, Chris, is there room, though, for improvement for her going into her second year after her rookie season ended last season? Can she get even better after what we saw this past year?
Yeah, I think she'll probably get even better after her rookie season with Skylar Diggins. And I think if Lynn Cambage could stay healthy with Skylar Diggins, Lynn Cambage, and Odyssey Sims, I think they could get even better and grow Odyssey Sims even better.
Chris, like I said before, man, I think when we were talking about the draft about the lottery back last month, man, is Tulsa's future remains bright, Chris. And, of course, it was basically started last year, man, when they had their promised number 3 pick of Skylar Diggins from Notre Dame, Chris, how she came in. And, it was, a pretty rough first year for Skylar, but you know what, Chris, what rookie doesn't go through a rough first season in any sport you play? Where this year, Chris, was awarded, and I believe was deservingly so, of the Most Improved Player of the Year award, Chris, how she really cleaned up her game, Chris, wasn't making a lot of the rookie mistakes she was making early in her career, Chris. And I think, man, that when you have Diggins and Sims in place, man, this, Chris, will be a young team. This isn't going to be like a Seattle team. This won't be like Seattle, or by gosh, Chris, thankfully won't be like New York where it's always old players, Chris, where you have a young, solid core nucleus, Chris, of so many young players, Chris. What was your take, though, man, about seeing Skylar Diggins' second year, Chris, after, maybe a bit of a, mediocre first year, Chris, but again, man, that second season, though, man, improving her game so well, the winning that coveted Most Improved Player of the Year award tagline.
Right.
Your thoughts about seeing Skylar Diggins' second full season in the WNBA, again, with her improving the game, Chris, again, some rookie mistakes, and then again, what rookie doesn't make mistakes, Chris? Just seeing her all-around game, though, this season, again, where she got that Most Improved Player of the Year award.
Just very awesome. The Skylar Diggins improving, winning the Improvement of the Year, and continuing to get even better.
Now, Chris, the next side of the story we're going to get to here, man, again, is about the playoff drought over the Tulsa Shock, Chris, how they have had, again, man, lacking that word of consistent basketball, man. The Shock have not made the postseason since 2009, Chris, and have not had a winning record since their last year in Detroit, Chris. So, I mean, this obviously, man, was not what the Tulsa Shock investor group, David Box and his other partner that bought the franchise to bring him down to Tulsa, Chris. This is not what they were envisioning when they bought this franchise, Chris, because they thought they were getting a franchise, man, that was, deep and enriched in WNBA history with 3 titles, 4 conference finals, Chris. And right now, not been the return on their dollar they wanted, Chris. Very, very bad play, especially, Chris, their second year in Tulsa, Chris, going 3-31. Ouch. What do you think, Chris, can happen, though, for the Shock going forward to get back, Chris, to where they should belong, man, which is, where the old Shock was in Detroit, Chris, which is back in the playoff picture, looking forward towards next season, man. Again, no postseason appearances and no winning record since 2009, man. What can they do, man, to get back to where they belong, which is back in the playoffs in the WNBA sometime very soon, hopefully?
Probably just play consistent throughout the season, and you'll should probably make the playoffs again.
Chris, I think you got to give the Shock some time, man, because once they get their number 2 pick next season, man, it's going to be a younger team, even the one it was this past season. The Shock, by the way, folks, finished with the 2nd worst record in the WNBA, tied with the Seattle Storm for 5th and 6th place in the Western Conference this year. They both finished 12-22 with the Storm via tiebreaker. Got the 5th seed, which really didn't matter for much in the WNBA Western Conference, but the Shock did get the number 2 pick. Chris, kind of going back over what we discussed here so far for the Shock, Chris, we'll go back to our first point again, Chris, which was, again, without Liz Cambage, man. Again, Chris, I don't know what it is, man. We talk about 2 teams. We talked about Seattle last night and Tulsa tonight, Chris, and it's the same first point that we have to bring up, Chris. Again, it's a big puzzle piece, man. It's a big-name player on that team. Injuries, holding out for the FIBA tournament, Chris, and they get hurt again and they can't play, Chris. Again, we had Lauren Jackson last night. Now, Chris, tonight with Liz, man, again, she was going to take time off to miss the first half of the year to train with the Australian Opal team, come back after the All-Star break, and then after the All-Star break, then get ready to go forward again with the second half of the season. Where Chris, let's just look at this, Chris, in general for the FIBA tournament, Chris, starting next Sunday. For Australia, Chris, no Jackson and now no Cambage, Chris. Can we basically, is this about the point in time, Chris, for you to say, stick a fork in the Aussies, they're done because 2 of their big puzzle pieces are out for the tournament because of injury?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I give them a chance still, Chris, but you know what, man, losing 2 big pieces like Lauren Jackson and Liz Cambage, good luck to my Aussie friends winning this tournament this year over there in Istanbul next week. Then, Chris, after Cambage again, man, there was the coaching staff turnovers, Chris, and the coaching staff, man, has been very, very suspect as of late with the Shock since the team moved from Detroit to Tulsa, Chris. How they have run through, I believe, maybe 5 coaches, I want to say, 4 to 5 coaches in their first 4 years down there, Chris. 2 coaching changes mid-season. Gary Kloppenberg was the lone guy that hung out there for 2 years, man, then also got booted out before he found his way to Los Angeles. And now, Chris, you have Fred Williams, Chris, and I thought that Fred Williams, Chris, who took Atlanta last season to the WNBA Finals against just another loaded Lynx team, Chris, I thought that, with Fred getting that team to the Eastern Conference Finals and into the league finals, Chris, that, okay, maybe Tulsa's got a chance here, Chris, but again, man, that start, though, again, Chris, that inconsistent play, Chris, they were in those first 2 games that they lost by 3, Chris, But it don't matter, man. A loss is a loss, like a win is a win, Chris. And honestly, you know, that 0 and whatever start was, Chris, you know, losing their first 4, 5, 6 games was basically, Chris, the nail in the coffin, man. And I know they got close to the playoffs, Chris, but again, I mean, Chris, you know, I can't keep driving home, Chris, but again, you've got to play consistently, man, to have success in any sport you play, whether it's arena football, board games, or the WNBA, Chris. You've got to be able, man, to have consistent play, man. And that's the thing, Chris, that a lot of Chris, it's not just a thing that the Shock lacked, Chris. It's a lot of teams, Chris, like Seattle, and tomorrow night, the Sun also had some consistent play. Again, folks, we'll have the Connecticut Sun recap tomorrow night back here, 9 o'clock, or 10 o'clock, actually, back here on the Sparks 365 network. But again, Chris, it's a matter of time, though, man, of when the Shock can start playing consistent basketball. So it's more so, you know, the coaching staff maybe, and then everything else included. But then again, Chris, you know, I kind of hate talking about the negatives here, Chris. But again, there are some positives, man. You do have, you know, you had a strong rookie year from Odyssey Sims, Chris. Your most improved player in the WNBA, Skylar Diggins. But again, Chris, you know, 2 players can't win the game for you, man. So kind of looking back over those 2 seasons again, Chris, between Odyssey's first season, all-rookie team, Diggins winning the most improved player, Chris, is the future of the Shock bright with these 2 young superstars that they have emerging in Skylar Diggins and Odyssey Sims for a few years to come here down there in Tulsa?
Yeah, I think their future is bright and looks really bright down there in Tulsa.
Again, folks, the Shock possessed the number 2 pick in the 2015 WNBA draft following the Seattle Storm, who had the number 1 overall pick. Then again, Chris, the big talking point again, Chris, is for the Shock. No winning season and no postseason basketball since the franchise left from Detroit to Tulsa. The last time, folks, being their last title season in 2009 in that season. Chris, as we get set, man, to wrap up here for tonight, again, folks, tomorrow night we'll have the Connecticut Sun recap tomorrow night at 10 o'clock here. And if any Sun fans want to tune in for us, drink some Red Bulls, some Monsters, and some coffees, we'll be on there tomorrow night at 1 a.m. Eastern for the Connecticut Sun recap, 10 o'clock back here on the Pac Coast. Now, folks, coming up next year, we're going to be going to Sparks. Keyword there, folks, is Sparks 365, folks. We have the list of possible free agency that the Sparks have already begun targeting, folks. We already have the first list of free agency already out that the Sparks have begun to set their radar on. But, Chris, as we do get ready to go out to our next show, Chris, your last thoughts about the 2014 Shock season and going forward for the 2015 campaign down there in Tulsa, OK. What do you got?
I think it was not a great season by Tulsa Shock, but I think the future is getting bright with Odyssey Sims, Skylar Diggins, and if Dean Cambage stay healthy throughout the season, and with their second overall pick in 2015, their future is looking bright.
Folks, I'll go back to what I said. Coming up next year, folks, we will get to Sparks 365, covering free agency already in the WNBA. That'll be up here in about 12 minutes here on the LA Sparks 365. Folks, take a break, and we'll take a break and be back here in about now 11 minutes here, back here on the network. See you folks then.